On this episode of Locked On Angels, what went wrong for the Halos in 2024? Because we don't have all day to talk about it in only 30 minutes, we've selected 3 things that had a major impact on the Halos this last season, and we're going to share those with you today. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Living rent-free in Dodger fans' heads. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day.
No.
Find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by GameTime. You can download their app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Hold on. I'm just
You
dodging.
bobbing and weaving?
I'm bobbing and weaving. The missiles are flying down on us here on Locked On Angels. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for being here and making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Together, we are the Super Halo Bros, and we're the hosts of Locked On Angels, our third offseason here on Locked On Angels. Why do you always got to do that? You always got to throw bombs, and then I got to clean up the mess. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, we're here 5 days a week talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday every single weekday. On today's show, we got a laundry list. Well, we could have had a laundry list.
Right.
What went wrong for the Halos in 2024? But we've narrowed it down to 3 specific things. Obviously, we could be here all day. It's a half-hour show. We don't want to take up any more of your time. So we're going to stick to a half an hour and select 3 things that had a huge impact on the 2024 season. Mike, let's start from the top with the ugly word that we all hate to hear, injuries.
Yeah, this feels like a sequel that didn't need to happen, right? And it's not even a sequel now. It's like the Fast and the Furious, way too many movies. The injuries for the Angels are way too many years in a row that they've had to deal with injuries.
Yeah.
And that was another major issue of what went wrong this last season. Anthony Rendon was top of the list, right? Only played in 57 games this season. Get this, John. It's the most games that he's played since 2021.
Wow.
And that season he played 58. He's played a total of 257 games with the Angels out of a possible 810 total games. Wow. And then with the Nationals, he played 916 games out of a possible 1,134 games. And John, he's the highest paid Halo for the next 2 seasons, more than Trout. He's making $38.5 million. Trout's making $37.1 million. And it's just the same narrative over and over and over again. And so I'm going to ask a very ridiculous question because I'm in a ridiculous mood. Is there any kind of turnaround for Rendon? And if so, would that satisfy fans and possibly change how they feel about him?
Well, we have this conversation every offseason. It's what's Rendon have to do to get the fans back on his side. It's too little too late at this point. And, we've mentioned this in the past few weeks, but in the past, there have been situations where you think, man, it really sucks that Rendon's not out there. We really need his bat in the lineup. Every time he's out there, he's contributing. Well, that stopped this season. He didn't even contribute on the playing field other than, being a body over there at third base and playing some decent third base over there like he always does. Man, at the plate, just useless, Mike. And in fact, it was his worst productive season, I guess you could say. I mean, he hasn't hit a home run since July of last year, 2023. Right. And in the short time that Eric Wagaman came up, he had way more positive stats on his score sheet, including way more home runs than Anthony Rendon. And then you mentioned the annual value of these 2 players, including Trout. The thing is Trout's contract is a bigger contract, but when you divide it up by years, Rendon gets paid $1.5 million more. And that's just, it's ludicrous at this point. I understand that he's made some comments that, he's trying everything he can to stay on the field and whatnot, but man, is there a worse free agent signing in Angels history? I'd have a hard time arguing with you. if it wasn't Anthony Rendon, because at this point, it's a total sunk cost. And if they were to let him go with 2 more years of his contract, I almost think that, that might be the better choice here, because you probably want to play some other guys over at third base and just move on already. Get rid of the bad juju.
Wouldn't you want to see like Eric Wagaman take that roster spot and be a backup third baseman and just a backup on the bench, or maybe Kyron Paris over there? Because at this point, it's just an anchor on this team. And there's all this potential of what he could be. He could be what he was in 2019. He could be a picture of what he was in 2019. He could, and it's always he could be. It just feels like it's a wasted roster spot. And the only reason why he's on this team is because of how much he's making. And I think Artie wants to try to squeeze out as much as he can from him because he's paying him so much. But at the end of the day, I think it's time to cut bait and move on and have somebody else come up and take that roster spot that has potential, that isn't going to cost you too much. I understand if they want to replace a Rendon with a Wagaman or like a Kyron Parrish, you're not going to pay him that much, and then let them have some major league experience. In the short time that Wagaman was here, he was much more impressive than Rendon has been in the last few years that he's been here.
Yeah, the thing is if they want to be competitive, you can't come into a season with a Wagaman or, I think Cole Fontenot would be a great choice. He's had some great time in the minors. I know he was hurt, but he's participating in the Arizona Fall League, I believe. I got to look that up, but I know he's working to get back. And then, Rengifo, like we talked about yesterday, give that guy a full-time starting spot at third base and figure out your second base situation. It really depends on what they do this offseason, because I think there just isn't a place for Rendon, even on the bench at this point. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's going to be a very interesting offseason. Let's talk about Mike Trout. Played in 29 games this season, the lowest amount of games he's played in his career, but he's also not played a full season since 2019, and that was even 134 games. Had some injuries that year as well. Played 119 games in 2022. Remember, he was gone for a little bit with the back issue, the career-debilitating, career-ending, career-threatening back issue. Came back and finished with 40 home runs that season. Last year, Mike, he had 10 home runs in 29 games. It seems like the power is still there, but is the question for you is Trout still going to be elite Trout, or is he just one of the guys now? What do you say?
Feels like he's one of the guys. Doesn't feel like he stands out because he hasn't been able to produce. And I know that we've had a lot of teases over the last few years, including the 119 games, 40 home runs last season with the 10 home runs. I got to see Mike Trout play a full season. Even if it's 134 games, I'll be satisfied with 134 games because they're giving him some regular days off. If it's as long as it's not him taking some time off because of injuries, if he's going to miss 1 game or 2 games weekly, then I'm okay with that if he's in the lineup as often as he can be and is producing. And it seemed like he was going to produce last season. I know that the slash line doesn't look great, but that was really just the start of the season. There wasn't too many at-bats that he had that really could get him going and get him hot. He's a late starter, and he's talked about that. And so I think, Johnny, he's one of the guys until he shows us that he's not and that he's better and elite like he was in the past. I think he could find it again. I really do. I think he's got that in him that hasn't gone away. It seems like all of his skill is still there. Even seems like he's got the great batter's eye. I know we've talked about the high strike and him swinging and missing. I think we'll see a lot of strikeouts this next season if he plays a full year. But I do think if he gets the 500, 600 at bats, we'll see old Mike Trout at least 280 batting average. I think he could get to 30, 40 home runs. I think he can knock in 100 runs, and they need that runners in scoring position bat with Mike Trout. I know his numbers haven't been great in over the last couple of years, but he has been somebody that has been helpful in this lineup, a threat in this lineup that causes the other guys to not freak out in those moments. And so I think his presence in this lineup will actually be beneficial to the young guys.
Yeah, at this point, it's really hard to bank on him being the part of the lineup that you need, including that threat in the middle of the order. It's really hard to bank on that right now because you don't know what his health status is going to be. And I think if you rewind it back a little bit and you just consider, there are some things that are not frequent injuries in the same spot. Like, right, we haven't heard any more about the back issue. This
Yeah.
year it was meniscus. Last year it was breaking the hamate bone. And so it's not so much a repeatable, like, oh crap, that shoulder is still bothering him or whatever you might say. And so that's what gives me hope for Trout to stay on the field. But again, I will contend until the end of time, he's got to drop some muscle weight. I think he needs to get leaner, and that's going to be a lot less wear and tear on his body. Mike, speaking of arms and shoulders and elbows, Robert Stevenson didn't even pitch in 2024, and he's not going to be available probably until about May, June of next year. Seems like the Halos actually knew something was up with him because his arm and shoulder were the issues. And then there was that clause in his contract where if he got injured, the Halos get him for an extra year, which is 2027. And that's only going to be $2.5 million. So he's making $11 million this year and next year. Of course, he made that on the injured list last year. But Stevenson found something with the Rays in 2023 after being traded from the Pirates. And most of his career, he's been kind of middle of the road. And so I'm not sure that, what he unlocked with the Rays, we had that thought with Tyler Anderson that what he unlocked with the Dodgers in 22 would carry over to 23. But relievers are volatile. We just talked about how good the bullpen has been this past season. And as much as I want to believe that they're going to continue that, bullpen relief arms are very volatile and you never know what you're going to get. So really all you can really go off of is a track record here. What kind of pitchers will the Halos get when Robert Stevenson returns?
I think because he hasn't been super great until his Rays time, and then it was super great with the Rays, I'll take a middle of the road Robert Stevenson. I know they're paying a lot of money, but if they can get the same performance out of this bullpen next year that they did this year, then I think that Robert Stevenson can slot in. Let's say that his ERA is mid threes, right? Like that would be a great ERA for him. If he can come in and be somebody that can get outs in the 6th inning, 7th inning, that'll be great for the Halos. Even if it's the 5th inning, if he can be somebody that can be consistent out of the bullpen, that's what we need with this bullpen. We need a veteran that can help get to the later innings. And I think that that's what we have in Robert Stevenson. I don't know if he's going to be the guy that he was with the Rays. If so, great, but he is coming off of an injury. And I know that Barry Enright has been able to work his magic with some of the guys. And so maybe he can continue to work his magic with Robert Stevenson. But my expectation would be that he's going to be kind of maybe in the middle of the road, not as bad as he was in previous years and not as good as he was with the Rays.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be beneficial if he comes back and pitches really well because his bullpen has been outstanding. I really, really hope they can carry that into 2025. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, what else went wrong for the Halos in 2024? We're going to share one obvious thing, and then we're going to share one organizational thing. We'll get into all of those conversations coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook, and they want you to be a smarter, better. And so because of that, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more that's on the same page where you place your bets. It's going to help you make better decisions and win more, which is a benefit to you. And FanDuel wants to help you get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is place your first $5 bet. That's $200 bonus. Don't even need to win. It's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And it's all waiting for you at FanDuel.com.
This is the Lockdown Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, if you want to support the show, if you want to support Mike and I directly, head on over to the merch store, the Super Halo Bros merch store. There's a link in the episode description. Mike, if you would, I'm wearing the
you're wearing the light blue one, and it's got our characters on the front of it. I love it. I'm pitching, John's hitting, and it's actually correct. I'm pitching right-handed, John's batting left-handed because I'm right-handed. Right. He's left-handed, and they're fantastic, comfy shirts, and you'll look good in these comfy shirts, right, Johnny?
That's right. And so if you want to get yourself a comfortable shirt, somebody at the Hoppy Bowl was like, "Man, these are really nice shirts. I like this quality." So head on over to
Logan
the
O'Hoppy that said that.
Oh, hey,
it was Logan O'Hoppy that said that.
Even better. So head on over to the links in the episode description and grab yourself a Super Halo Bros shirt or some merch, or we have other Angels related products as well. Head on over there. The link is in the episode description, whether you're watching or listening.
John, what the heck happened to Reid Detmers, Griffin Canning, and Patrick Sandoval? Like, these guys were going to be the Langston, Finley, and Abbott of our starting rotation, right? They had awful seasons last year, which included Patrick Sandoval needing surgery, and he's probably going to be out until 2026. I don't think we're even going to even hear about him in 25 getting close to pitching for us, even in the minor leagues. And we know the stats aren't great, but I got to talk about the human. I got to talk about the player. Like, these guys just seemed like they lost it because there was all this potential, and not as much for Griffin Canning as for Patrick Sandoval, and not as much for Patrick Sandoval as there was for Reid Detmers. And Reid started off this season so fantastic. And so I got to ask, like, was this a result of the Halos, the organization, expecting just way too much from these pitchers? Because remember, you and I did a whole show last offseason that if the Angels were going to be competitive with these guys, they were going to have to pitch above their pay grade. They were going to have to pitch out of their mind. They were going to have to be Justin Verlander, and those three guys have not even sniffed the Verlander, right? Like, they haven't even gotten close to that. So was this a result of a ton of expectations placed on pitchers who are too young and not yet mature enough to handle it?
Yeah, the issue here is that they came into the season, saying they're going to run the West down, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And look, that was all well and good before the offseason, but I think smart fans recognized that this was going to be a development year. Our mantra all season long was no expectations. And when it comes specifically to the starting pitchers, Mike, none of these guys had hit 150 innings, I think the three that you're discussing in their career. And here's the thing. It used to be that you would get, 200 innings out of a top guy in your rotation. Now I would say 180 is the new 200, just purely based on how the game of baseball is being played right now, especially with trying to combat arm issues and whatnot. You see a lot of guys get pulled in the 6th or after the 6th and the 7th starts. But now I'd say 180 innings is kind of the old 200, but none of these guys had even hit 150 in their careers. And like Griffin Canning pitched every time he went out there. He pitched and he pitched and he pitched. Was it always good? No. Tyler Anderson went out there, took the ball a ton of times this season. But you're right. These guys were expected to do things that they had never come close to doing in their careers. I don't know if you want to call that pressure. I don't know if you want to call that just kind of throwing them, to the fire or in the lion's den and saying, all right, see what you can do. But that's kind of what happened. It was, all right, let's see what happens here. Let's roll the dice and see what happens. But if you go back to last offseason, they didn't add any arms to this rotation. Right. They didn't have a plan to, enhance the rotation in any way, shape, or form. They essentially were like, all right, young guys and Tyler Anderson, it's all you. Head on into 2024, see what you can do. And I don't think that was a bad thing, but the fact that these guys either got hurt or didn't live up to expectations or just couldn't get right, I think it revealed a lot about the young starters on this team, which is why when I see guys like Jack Kohanowitz, and I know Chase Silseth got hurt and was just dealing with injuries all season long, and even in the minor leagues didn't perform great. But when I look at Kohanowitz and Silseth, I'm like, I'm just, I'm going to hitch my wagon to those guys because I think the time has come and gone for guys like Detmers, Canning, and Sandoval.
Yeah, guys that I think got over-evaluated, right? And got put into, I think they got put into positions where they just weren't ready for them mentally and talent-wise. It didn't seem like they even had the talent to be able to hold down the position. I mean, I was going nuts about Patrick Sandoval getting the opening day start, and then he's like, I want to lead the way, and I want to prove to these guys. And I loved all the talk. Right. That's all we get. That's all we ever get. And I just never see the talent that backs up all of this evaluation and this excitement. And it just feels it's frustrating as a fan because we see it and we're like, I don't know if that was a a smart move. But I guess we're going to trust the organization. They must know more than we do. And then we get what we got this last season, right?
I don't think anybody said that, but,
Sure.
I think it's reasonable to expect good things out of your young starting pitching. In fact, you go back 2 years ago to 2022, and I think that's why the expectations are always so high for these guys, because of what they accomplished 2 years ago. Did you slip and fall and accidentally, pull the lever on the lottery machine and then you win the jackpot? Because that's kind of what it felt like watching Reid Detmers and Patrick Sandoval, because they had such great 2022s. And so there has always been a baseline where you're like, hey, that's a pretty good start for such young pitching, and you can build from that. And they've never built from that. Everybody says we need World Baseball Classic Patrick Sandoval back with this team. And other than 2022, the Angels have never got anything close to that from Patrick Sandoval. So again, I think the expectations that people may have had, or that they tried to spin toward us and try to make it seem like these guys were going to be the ones that they rely on. Look, I don't have a problem going in with the rotation that they had, because it was like, all right, time to sink or swim. And there was a lot more sinking than swimming, but at least we got an answer. At least we know that, all right, maybe this is who they are. This is all that they can do at this point.
Yeah, that World Baseball Classic Patrick Sandoval is an interesting conversation, and don't have time to get into it deeply today, but I think that there might be something with Sandoval, at least, because he's so emotional and so revved up on the mound, where he needs to be in a competitive environment. And I wonder if the non-competitive environment of the Angels just hasn't been beneficial to how he's wired. And maybe the non-competitive environment for Reid Detmers is actually not beneficial to him either, because he seems to be pretty laid back, and he might need a bit of a swift kick in the butt, right? And moved in a direction where, like, hey, bro, this counts. I know he's been in some big games and he's performed. When I say big games, like, it's been against good teams like the Dodgers, right? But I wonder if the environment has something to do with that as well. And that has been a detriment to the young starting staff, the young halos, right?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point to make, because you're pitching for nothing. At the same time, you got to step up and make this team pitch for something and play for something. So that's kind of the catch-22 there. Mike, let's talk about Tyler Anderson, who had a great start to the season. Then his second half was exactly what we were all kind of expecting. It wasn't great. We really wanted to trade him at the trade deadline. That did not happen. And his expected stats, like the expected batting average, the fielding independent pitching, they all kind of caught up to him after the All-Star break, and he wasn't really the same. Again, that fielding independent pitching is everything that the pitcher can control. You take defense out of the equation, and Tyler Anderson was outperforming the expected numbers all season long until the halfway point. And it was always like, well, that bridge is going to break eventually. And it most certainly did. What can we expect from Tyler Anderson in 2025?
I like him because this last season, what I saw was the competitive fire on the mound. And especially in the first half, he really was somebody that helped carry us. Problem is he shouldn't be carrying us. He shouldn't be that type of pitcher. He's a number 3 on this team and a number 5 on a lot of other teams. And so I would love to see the Angels make some moves to where he's not the guy that we're relying upon. He's the guy that is continuing the winning streak. He's the guy that is helping us to win 2 out of 3 over the weekend. That's what I hope for Tyler Anderson. And my expectation would be that at the beginning of the year, a fresh, healthy Tyler Anderson, maybe working on some things, arm angles, things like that, will be somebody that is pretty competitive. But I think the Angels need to pay close attention to what happens in the first half, especially to those underlining numbers, to find out what they should do with him at the All-Star break, or at least at the trade deadline. What are we going to do with Tyler Anderson? If they're in it, then I think there still should be some consideration in trading him and possibly getting some pieces for a playoff run. I know he could be great for like August and September because he can eat up innings and then you have him in the playoffs. However, his August and September the last couple of years have not been great. And so I think if the Angels are going to be thoughtful about this and have a strategy, they should rely upon him in the first half to be the guy he was last year, and then consider wherever they're at, consider making a trade to get some pieces for him that could help benefit this team either for that playoff run if they're in it, or for the following season. And I think he can, even though it's a small window, I think he could still get maybe one good piece for the Halos, something that could benefit them moving forward.
My issue with Tyler Anderson is that when it comes down to it, it's a lot of luck-based results, and he doesn't control enough of the game to control his own destiny, if that makes sense. That's why fielding independent pitching is such an interesting stat, because it's essentially, this is you in charge of the outcome. And for Tyler Anderson, it was a lot of luck and a lot of results that essentially caught up to him at the end. And so I'm interested to see what happens in 2025. If there's a way they can eliminate the luck-based outcomes for Tyler Anderson, I think that would go a long way for him next season.
Today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by GameTime. If you're looking to go to the World Series, GameTime is obsessed with finding you tickets that are going to help you save some money. And I did look, and there was a lot of tickets with 4 digits, John, for both New York and in LA. And so GameTime would be a perfect app to download today, because they might be able to find you something fancy if you're planning on going to the World Series. And why not experience a World Series, even though it might be with the rival Dodgers and it might be in Southern California where you don't want it to be. Being at a playoff game, especially a World Series game, is a whole lot of fun, and GameTime wants to get you there. They have so many options on their app that they can benefit you. They have all sorts of ways that they're going to save you money. The best thing about their app is that they have the lowest price guarantee, because if you find something better, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. And if something comes up, they have the best ticket coverage plan in all of application world, right? And all of baseball world. And they will cover your purchase with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets, especially if you're planning on going to the World Series. Download the app today, the GameTime app, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game time.
Mike, the Halos finished with a franchise record 99 losses. They didn't hit 100. And we said they weren't going to hit 100. 99, sure. 98, sure. Of course. But 100? No, not going to happen. Not going to happen. And it didn't happen.
Nope.
So I'm just going to wear that a little bit. There was a lot that contributed to the fact that they broke the franchise record for losses, but the one big reason was the offseason plan.
Right.
Because there was no plan, right, Mike?
Right. No, there wasn't a plan. And they said that there was a plan, and they're going to run down the West, and they're going to do all these things. But I remember you and I, over the offseason, doing this show, waiting for anything. And then we would have like breaking news, but it would be a minor league signing. So we'd come on here and go, well, they signed this person. And then you even did a really good segment about like, hey, maybe they're making these signings because they're actually going for some significant moves. And it was a really thoughtful, smart baseball fan perspective. And then the Angels went, no, we're not doing that either.
Yeah, we're not doing that. And then I believe I said the Angels made me look like an idiot because I thought they were going after some big arms that they could really use. Yeah. And that's why they didn't go after guys like Waka or Lugo, and we all saw how that worked out with the Royals. Worked out fantastically. The other thing is we had this whole song and dance with, Ohtani and everything, and Ron Washington saying stuff about Ohtani, and Perry Manassian saying, he's a great player. We'd really love to have him back. And then, already sat on his hands and didn't do anything about it and let him walk away. So there was a lot of talk about this is what we're going to do. We're going to be busy this offseason. And that's why I have a hard time buying anything that they say regarding this upcoming offseason. I'm excited for the offseason. The offseason is always a lot of fun, but man, even beyond the Angels, last year's offseason stunk. Like it was so boring after, a handful of signings, but there was a lot of talk and no action, Mike. And one of the biggest signings was Robert Stevenson. And again, at $33 million, and they knew he was hurt, and they, got that extra year and whatnot. So that's behind us. But man, that was the whole thing.
That was it.
Essentially last year. Already said they were going to dial things back on purpose because they pushed the payroll up in 2023, and then they knew, attendance might be down this season, which it was. The revenue might be down this season, which it was. And so all of that to say, what we've heard this offseason so far is the don't make me go there. I was going to say the sounds of a plan, the concepts of a plan. Yeah. But will anything happen this offseason? What do you say?
This is going to be me, and you're going to need to narrate it for our audio listeners. But this is going to be me all offseason.
All right. Mike is sitting with his hand under his chin, staring into the screen. He's contemplating life as an Angels fan, wondering how did he get into this home. Oh, sorry, I added to that.
I'm going to be watching closely. That's all I can say. You had a great phrase, grain of salt, when we heard Artie Moreno, right? Like I think I'm gonna watch closely, and when they show me that they are actually going to be competitive, I'm going to get excited about that. But they have to show me that, and not competitive like, so Christian Moore is going to play second base, and we're really excited about Christian Moore. But I'm excited about him too, but I also get excited about the Christmas gifts that I'm going to receive that I don't know about yet, because I'm excited about him, right? But we don't know about Christian Moore. We don't know what he's going to bring. We don't know what he's going to do, right? And that's the narrative I'm going to watch closely too. Like if it's going to be, Caden Dana, he's going to actually be our opening day starter, I'm going to go, okay, you're not serious at all.
No,
right?
You're not serious. Oh, I love that. Yeah, you're not serious. You're an unserious franchise. I love that phrase. But that's the thing is, if these guys are banking on young talent to help them out, they should. They should.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys who all got a chance this past year should be back, and you can bank on what they were able to set a baseline for. But if you're going to be competitive, if you really want a playoff spot, Artie Moreno, like you said, you're going to have to do some wheeling and dealing, and that's going to look like free agent signings. That's going to look like some trades, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people are hesitant about is like, don't trade the future if you don't think these guys are ready now. And I think that is the road that the Angels are heading down. And look, they're going to get pieces. They're going to sign people. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be excited. We're going to see what shakes out in 2025. But the fact is they have to do something. There has to be action. And like I said the other day, like you said, grain of salt. You can give me all the talk you want in the world. You did a lot last year in terms of, hey, you brought in Ron Washington. You're starting to build a baseline for culture. You're starting to build a baseline for expectations and accountability. Let's see how that goes in year 2. But now's the time. You got to do something with the pieces that you have. Some people were like, man, why did Ron Washington play Brandon Drury so much? And to me, it was a message of Ron Washington saying, Perry, you see what you gave me? This is what I have to work with. I'm putting Rendon in the cleanup spot because that's what you want. And this is what I have to work with. So if you want things to change, you're going to have to do some action over this upcoming offseason.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now enjoy Locked On MLB as your second listen today. Listen to our friend Sully, who's going to get you ready for the World Series. Lots of information about that coming out. He is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. He's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Get in the comment section, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on your way down there. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
John, we know that Shohei Ohtani is in the World Series. We know that. So, Dodger fans, thanks for the videos. Thanks for the tweets. We know. We're baseball fans.
I had no idea.
Right. The people sending us stuff is hilarious. So, we're going to talk about Ohtani tomorrow. Right.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about him in the World Series. We're going to talk about how we feel about that. And there's a whole lot of other things that we're going to talk about. And if I could just have just a couple of minutes on our show tomorrow, John, I think we have to address the fact that Dodger fans keep showing up in our mentions. We haven't talked about them at all. And they just keep showing up in our mentions to, I don't know, take a dump. We know that this is a dumpster fire. We know that. Okay, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to do a show tomorrow, Mike. We're going to do a show tomorrow. Okay, friends. Thanks for being here with us. Until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Can we just record the show right now? Because I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's just get it done. I'm in.